I've had the amazing opportunity to be able to play Honkai Star Rail in this final CBT. In this video, I will be breaking down all of the combat for you to understand so you know what to expect on release. Let's get into the video. Toshi, what is a turn-based game? If you're familiar with Pokemon, then it's pretty much the same thing in this game. You have Team A and you have Team B. Team B will be the enemy and Team A will be your team. When it's your turn, then you're able to use skills, basic attacks, ultimates, and so on and so forth. When it's the enemy's turn, you're not able to use any skills, basic attacks, or ultimates. You have to then wait for the end of the enemy's turn to be able to use skills and ultimates and basic attacks again, and this will rinse and repeat until one side wins. I hope that made sense. Much like other turn-based games, Honkai Star Rail also has a 3-ability combat system. You have your basic skill, your skill, and then you have your ultimate. When your ultimate is ready to be used, you'll see it glowing and it'll be full, and you can pretty much tap it and you use your ult when it's your turn, of course. You can see who is going to take the turn in the top left. You can see Clara is ready to use her abilities because she's the first one on the list. And then the second one is Herta, so Herta will go after Clara. Herta, Trailblazer main character, and after the Trailblazer main character, it will be Natasha, and after Natasha's turn, then it'll be the enemy. If the enemy is faster than you, then the enemy will be on top, and then you'll go after the enemy, depending on how many there are. So when I use my skill on Clara, once she then uses her skill, her turn will go away and then she'll go back at the bottom of the list. This is very important because there is a sort of strategy when it comes to skill management, which we'll talk about later in the video. So you want to be mindful of whose turn it is and what abilities you're also using. And then once I use Herta's any ability, any skill, then Herta's turn will go away and then it will be the character after, which is the main character. And then so on and so forth. So once the main character's turn goes away, and then it will be Natasha. So as I said before, every character has skills. So once you press a skill, depending on what the skill description is what the character will do. So in this case, Clara has an AoE attack on her skill. So once I press her skill, she will then launch a barrage of missiles at the enemy. So as I said before, there is ultimates in this game. You can actually use any ultimate on your team, even when it's not that character's turn, as long as you have the turn and not the enemy. So let's just say I wanted to use Herta's ult even though I'm actually using Clara right now. All I have to do is press Herta's ult when it's my turn, and then Herta will use her ult, or any character on my team rather, and then I can just use the ult. And then after I use the ult, I will then take the turn with said character. And you can do that with any character on your team. One of my favorite things about this game is the actual ults, because a lot of them have really cool animations. I really like Clara's a lot. He summons a giant robot and he pretty much protects her. He's like the guardian. Now, we've talked about this in a previous video, but to brush up your memory, let's go over the 7 elements of the actual combat system. We have physical, fire, ice, lightning, wind or animo, quantum, and imaginary. And then we also have playable paths, but we'll get into that in a different video. So all you need to know is that the 7 different elements in this game all have different effects whenever you break a character's toughness bar, or the white bar above their HP. So each of these elements have additional effects whenever you actually break the white bar of an enemy, and that is the toughness bar I was talking about earlier. So in this case, the effect for physical will be bleed, the effect for fire will be burn, the effect for ice will be freeze, the effect for lightning will be shock, the effect for wind will be wind shear, the effect for quantum will be entanglement, and the effect for imprisonment will be imaginary. And this is going to matter for team comps, but like I said, that will be in a different video. All you need to know is that each enemy and boss all have their different set of weaknesses, and it's very important to actually target that boss with said weakness. So if the boss is weak to quantum, then I want to use a character like Seal that also has quantum damage. If the enemy is weak to fire damage, then I want to use a character like Himiko, so that I can make sure I actually go ahead and break the bar of the enemy. Or if let's just say the enemy was weak to lightning, then I can use a character like Ting Yun, physical Natasha, ice Herta, wind or animo Den Heng. These are all just examples. So I'm going to walk up to this guy and I'm going to press my E skill. And then we're going to engage with combat and I'm going to do additional damage because I used my skill before we actually did the fight. And I actually target the weakness. So the way this works in the game, there isn't any elemental reactions. Just like Genshin Impact, you have Hydro and Pyro and you do Vaporize. There's no Vaporize, there's no Melt, and there's no, swirl. Instead, what we have is weakness. So the top of the enemy's icon, you can see the elements there. Those are going to be the elements that the enemy is weak to. If I use any of those elements, then this white bar will go down, and once the white bar reaches pretty much 0 and it goes away, it will trigger something called break on the enemy. Then you will be doing more damage with your characters overall. And this is very important for boss battles, as we will get into later in the video. So let's say you trigger weakness enough times on a boss and you actually trigger break from hitting them with the element they're weak to. If the boss was charging up a special attack, the boss will then be stunned and not be able to use that special attack, and it will disrupt their sequence. This is very important to keep in mind as you do tackle harder content. So as I said before, speed will dictate who will go first in the actual beginning of the match. My Natasha has 98 speed, my Clara has 106 speed, and my Herta has 101 speed. My Natasha will go last, and my Clara will go first because my Clara has the highest speed, and my Natasha has the lowest speed. So if you want your character to go first in your teams, then you need to make sure that they have the highest speed. And there's some characters like Seal that benefit from having high speed. So it makes sense for a character like Seal to take the turn, or Bronya also, because Bronya boosts characters in your team comps. And contrary to that statement, there are some characters that benefit from having little to no speed. In this case is Clara. So my Clara is actually built in low bit speed because early game doesn't really matter what you do with your stats. But this will be very important for when you're tackling harder content in the game. So Clara has a built-in counter attack in her skills. So counter meaning whenever she's hit by the enemy or the enemy hits an ally, then Clara will hit the enemy back, even if it's not her turn. This is very important because Clara benefits from having low speed because you want her to get hit as much as you can because she will constantly counter the enemy, dealing lots and lots of damage. And just like I said before, if you are slower than the enemy, well then the enemy will get the turn first. And there is some boss battles where the enemy will always be faster than you, assuming you don't have the gear capable of outspeeding them. And as I said before, the ways of obtaining speed in this game is through relics. So you can see here I have a 4-piece of the newbie gear, because I am still in the beginning of the game, but this set 4-piece increases my speed by 6%. If I take off the 4-piece, so we'll just remove the relics here, then you'll see my speed pretty much drop down to 90. So my Clara is going to be the last one going in my team comp because she has the slowest speed. But if I want my Clara to go first, then I want to give her as much speed as possible. So I'm going to equip her back with the set that increases speed. And this is also important to keep in mind that there is actually speed boot gear in this game, and this will also drastically increase your speed as well, on top of the artifacts or relics, whatever you want to call them. So now that I equipped the gear, the relics, artifacts back on Clara, you can see that her speed went back up, and now she will be the first one taking the turn in my team. If I wanted Natasha to take the turn first, then I would give her the speed gear, and then she would have the fastest speed on my team. So I did mention how important speed really was, and it dictated who went first in the actual start of the match. That's really all there is to it. Speed isn't going to be the end-all be-all for the game, because stats overall really was what matters for your character. HP, attack, defense, and maybe no speed, and crit rate and crit damage. That's more important than giving Clara 200 speed. So characters like Ting Yun, you actually want to give her more speed because her base speed is already high enough, and with her skill, she actually increases the attack of an ally. This is actually really valuable because the more you can give an attack boost to an ally, the more value you get from using Ting Yun. And she also increases that ally's base speed whenever they use their ultimate. So you want her to constantly get the turn. So Ting Yun's the only exception because this character really needs speed. Now let's go ahead and wrap it up with paths. So paths are going to be classes each character in the game is categorized in. In the destruction path, you have characters like Clara, who can deal a lot of damage and have great survivability, so meaning bruiser type of characters. Then you have Hunt, which are characters that are really good at nuking enemies. So this is going to be characters like Seal. Seal is a really good single target damage dealer. And then we have the Erudition. This is going to be characters that have nice AoE skills that can hit multiple group of enemies. So this is going to be characters like Herta, a very nice AoE damage dealer. And then we have the Harmony. This is going to be for characters that apply buffs to allies to improve combat capabilities. This is going to be characters like Bronya, who can give attack buff, CR push, and remove a debuff. And also a character like Ting Yun, who also increases attack, damage dealt, and their overall speed. Then we have the Nihility, and this will be characters that apply debuffs to enemies to reduce their combat capabilities. And this will be a character like Welt. Welt is a very nice debuffer, also a damage dealer. It doesn't mean that the character who applies debuffs doesn't do damage, but their overall utility is mostly doing debuffs, and Welt will be the best example of that. And then we have the Preservation. These would be characters that provide powerful defensive abilities to protect allies in various ways. This will be a character like Jeopard, who provides shields and defense buffs. Really good character for overall survivability. And then we have the Abundance, and this is going to be characters that heal and overall keep your team healthy. This will be a character like Natasha, nice 4-star healer, or a nice 5-star healer and reviver, Bailu. So that's going to be pretty much it here. We went over the combat system for Honkai Star Rail and everything you need to know on a basic level. There will be an intermediate version of this in the future because there is much more deeper mechanics regarding the system overall. I don't want to overwhelm you, so I just went ahead and gave you the basics. But that's it, and I wanted to really just mention that I actually do enjoy Honkai Star Rail's combat system. I played a lot of Pokemon growing up, and Pokemon is definitely the comparison I can make the most of this game, because a lot of the things in this game are kind of one-to-one that game. Especially the character collecting, even though that's not really combat related. So overall, I would rate the combat system a nice 8 out of 10. Not really too complex, not too easy, but also it's very rewarding. Feeling the satisfaction of breaking an enemy's toughness bar and then stunning them after they're going to use their, or before they're going to use their special attack rather, is very satisfying. It's one of the best rewarding feelings you could get in this game. Aside from getting, your 5-star character like 10 pity, not losing 50-50. Hopefully you all got something out of this, and if you have any questions, of course, let me know in the comments section. I'm just letting you all know that I do stream on Twitch. The link will be in the description, and I stream pretty much every day. Peace.